Okay, good morning. If we're using the book Shabbos, we're on page 151. 151. And let's see. Allison, Julie, and Diana, and Petra. Okay. Hannah. Okay, I see you have what's the new person? Yes, Adina. I don't have you. Yes. Okay, I see. Welcome the new students. Some of you are staying for a longer time. Some are just for today. What's the for a month? Everyone? Yeah. Okay, so we'll have to get your name on the list. Okay, we're learning the Ramates Malachas, the 39 categories, and we've gone through the series of preparing the colors, the dye for the coloring of the walls of the Mishkan that was going to be used for the curtains and for the clothes of the Kohanim. So we've gone through now the making using herbs, using different plants that were made into colors. And the Mishnah speaks about the same steps that are used for making bread. So we have the preparing the ground, planting, harvesting, bundling, then making it clean by sorting, borer, and then winnowing, having the wind move away the waste. And then we made it now into, last week we spoke about making it into a powder, which is grinding, taking something that grows from the ground and making it very fine. And then, after that was done, comes the next step of 151, which is sifting, the rakade. So we have the purpose is to remove, using the example of flour, remove the unwanted from the wanted by using a sifter. So we had different steps by doing this. One was taking it out by hand, which is sorting, borer, then Zoreh, throwing it up into the air, having the wind do it. Now the malacha is doing it with a sifter. So this is a Torah prohibition, using a sifter on Shabbos to remove the unwanted, or by having the wanted staying inside the sifter. The holes are small, so the powder goes out and the solid remains, the bigger pieces. So this would also include, as an offspring of this, is filtering waste out of a beverage with a strainer. And next page, 152. The same would also be if we have everything that is good, but we're using it to separate the bigger pieces from the smaller pieces. We don't want the bigger pieces, we just want the smaller pieces. So using a special tool for that would go into this category. And the rabbinical prohibition would be putting flour through a sifter and then using your hand, I guess, to break down the lumps and to make it into smaller pieces that should go through the sifter. That also is forbidden because it looks like one is sifting. So technically it's not a Torah prohibition, as we learned last week, that Ein tchina achat tchina, if something is been made to a fine powder, then it lumps together. Breaking it down again is not a malacha. So using a sifter for that is rabbinically forbidden, is also midrabanan. So let's speak about examples that would be permissible. And we had this last week. So if we have crackers or matzah, can we break the matzah or crackers down to very fine pieces? So you're allowed to. Can you take the matzah and put it onto a sifter and then bang the matzah until it breaks down and then use the sifter to sift it? So that cannot be done because you're using a special tool, even though it's not a Torah prohibition, because something that was made into a solid by take the flour, we made it into crackers, we made it into matzah, we made it into bread, made it into challah. All of this, breaking it into small pieces, we said is permissible, but not through a special tool. And a sifter is a special tool for that. So that's the problem. It's not the breaking it down. Since originally it was a flour, you're not making it any smaller. So that's not the problem. The problem is using a special tool for that.
Only before it was like small.
Yeah, it was already small before. So you're not changing it, you're just lumped together. So therefore, using the example we used last week was if you have sugar that became lumped, you have salt that became lumped, so you're allowed to break it down to small pieces, break the sugar down, but that you would do not with a special tool, that you would do with your hand or take do it in an unusual way, take the handle of a vessel and break down the sugar or salt, but not to do it with a tool. So an example would be a salt shaker. Now, are we allowed to use a salt shaker?
Yes.
Why? Is it called sifting?
No.
Because what's its purpose?
Like it just prevents all of it from coming out.
Okay, we just want to spread it evenly. We want to make an even spread. So therefore, that's its purpose. If there is in the salt shaker, there is those lumps, then we can't use that salt shaker because the top of it is a sieve, is a sifter.
So there's
So it's only so if there are lumps in your salt shaker, then we don't use that salt shaker on Shabbos. More than that would be also, we spoke about it earlier time about some people would put in the summertime, they would put in rice in their salt shakers, so it would absorb the moisture to prevent it from lumping together. However, the top of the salt shaker is used as a sifter to prevent the rice from going out. So if there's rice in your salt shaker, you cannot use that on Shabbos. Does anyone have rice in their salt shakers?
Yeah.
That's okay. So so it's not something that just in the books, people actually do that.
It's not okay. Prevent it from like drying.
From drying out, yes. So we cannot use that salt shaker, not for the lumps and not for the rice. Now, it does tell you here on page at the bottom of 152 that what happens if you want to sprinkle sugar with a sifter. So if the sugar is all fine, the sifter is only used as a spreader. As long as there are no pieces of sugar that you are trying to spread out on the cake or biscuits, you're using it only as a spreader, you're using it as a salt shaker just to spread it out equally. So as long as there are no pieces and you're not using the sifter to do any actual sifter, everything is going through the sifter, then it could be used for Shabbos if your purpose is just to spread everything equally.
The sifting is going through the membrane. The things that you want or you don't want.
Right, but over here, everything is wanted, it's just used as a spreader to make everything equal. So we cannot use special tools for the purpose, and therefore on Shabbos, You cannot use a slotted spoon. A slotted spoon, everyone knows what that is. It's a spoon that has holes. That was,
You can't use
I could bring, no, you cannot use that because, but you could use it if you're just using to take chicken. If you're using it if you're using it as a fork, a spoon, you're not separating anything. But what happens if you do have coleslaw? The coleslaw in its liquid is considered a mixture. And now you're using that special spoon to remove the coleslaw and leave the liquid behind. So the coleslaw pieces are small enough to be considered a mixture with the liquid. And therefore, you cannot use a special spoon that has the holes in order to have just the coleslaw and the cabbage and not the liquid.
But if it's chicken, like in a lot of liquid, like there's a lot of gravy or whatever, that's fine.
But not to use it as special, it's used a special tool for that, we don't, even though it's not considered borer because they're big pieces,
Right.
but to use a special tool for that, we don't use. So among the special tools that we don't use would be, so we have the slotted spoon. You have something that's called a colander. Am I pronouncing it right? Colander is a bowl that has a lot of holes in it. You usually will use it for, you want to, if you're cooking noodles or rice, and you want to separate the liquid from the noodles or rice, so you have that special bowl that has holes in it. That cannot be used on Shabbos for that purpose. You can use it to put fruit inside if you want, because the holes are not being used for any purpose.
Can you
But
wash it in there?
Can
Can you wash the grapes on that bowl?
no, you cannot use a colander for grapes because you are using you're basically using the water in this special bowl to get rid of the dirt. You cannot put you cannot have a bowl of water and put the grapes inside and swish them around to clean the grapes, because you're using the water that's in the bowl as your tool to separate.
Even if after you just make the grapes?
That's correct, that's correct. But you're using, meanwhile, it's being used as a tool to clean your grapes. You could take the grapes and put them under the faucet, where you're holding onto the grapes and all the dirt washes away. But to put them in a bowl of water for the same purpose, to clean the grapes, even though you're going to be taking the grapes out, that cannot be done. So we cannot use any special tool to separate a mixture. Any question on this? Oh, so you could use your you do have it's called in the sink you have a screen that two screens. You have a screen in the faucet. Its purpose is that you have that when you have the faucet, you have on the spigot, on the faucet coming out, you have this filter. Can you use that on Shabbos?
Yes.
It's an if.
If the water is.
If the water is drinkable, if you could use the water as is, then you could use that filter that's at the end of your faucet. If the water is not drinkable, like in some places, they have sand in the water. So then this filter is used to filter out the waste, to filter out the dirt. So that cannot be used on Shabbos. They would have to prepare enough water for drinking purposes on Shabbos to have a supply of water. And in my class, I did have in some countries, they do have the sand in the water, and what's in Argentina? Sand and water, or it's good water? Water is good? Okay, but I think one of the South American countries, the girls were telling me that they do prepare before Shabbos, they prepare a big supply of water for drinking because their water is sandy. So now, once I was teaching this, I have to tell you, my experience, experience is such, when I teach something and I say to myself, I'm just teaching it because it's not something that's practical. I always come up with something that is unusual. An example is I was teaching about the screen, the filter in the faucet. And I say to myself, our New York water is clean, there's nothing inside, it's fine. And then that week, the water is not going out well. So I open up the filter at the end of the faucet, and out comes a straw, a drinking straw. What's in my faucet? That's so from the New York water supply. That's the only time, it's only when I was teaching this. And I said to myself, in New York, we don't have to worry about it. And
So you do have to worry about it?
no, I'm saying this is something like,
I
I think it would be, it would be one of a millions happening, something happening like that. I don't know how it got there. I don't know what happened to it, but it's just like, I was also teaching about checking bugs. And I was speaking about the bell peppers. That before you eat a bell pepper, you have to open it up and see if there's no worms inside. And from my experience, I never, ever saw a worm inside a pepper. And that week, I opened it up, and there was something you could not miss.
No way.
It was giant, a worm that was like giant. So when I teach about unusual things, Hashem shows me that it happens. One more story. I was teaching also about checking for insects. And there is something that's called carp sable. It's a delicate, they serve it at one time very, very common when they made a bris or when they gave the fish platter. They would have slices of, you have the whitefish, the big whitefish on the plate. Then you would have slices of carp sable. It's a white fish, and it says that there are white worms in it. And this is something, they stopped giving it because it's a very expensive item now. So they give lox and they give whitefish, but they left out the carp sable. But at one time it was very popular. And I was saying to myself, we've been, having this served so many times. And sure enough, a white worm, the fact that it is white, it blends very well into the fish. And so unless you're, I'm just saying that unless you are, aware of it, that's something that you do look for, this tells you have to look. So Hashem gives me the
parasites. They're like in a lot of.
So again, if it's that small that it's not visible to the eye, we don't consider that. If it's visible to the eye, then you cannot. Even if it's dead or alive, you cannot eat insects, even if they are dead.
Also, like
Insects cannot be.
if they're inside a cooked salmon,
Yes, you can't eat it.
you can't eat it.
No,
But like obviously, I'm saying like it happens.
it has to be removed. I'm saying you have to be aware.
Search for it.
If it's something that's common, you have to search. Visually, you don't have to, like take it apart, but usually you have to see if you do see it, and then you know that it's something that has to be.
What if like a worm ended up in your soup? Are you allowed to eat the soup? Okay.
Are you allowed to?
Are you allowed to?
If it's 60 times as much soup as the worm, you take the worm out, and the rest of the soup is kosher. If you want to eat it, yes. So if it's 60 times as much, then it's
Yeah, right, I think it's better.
okay.
Also, I wanted to ask, so is it correct that you can't, like, for example, lettuce, usually when you're checking it, you put it in a bowl and like wash
Yes.
everything. So on Shabbos.
Shabbos you cannot do
right?
that.
You wash it under the tap.
Yes. Then you check each leaf, and if there's something there, you tear off a piece of the leaf together with the insect.
Okay.
Unless it went through, unless it washed away with your, with water. Okay. Okay, now, page 153, we go to our next malacha that is forbidden, and that's called lisha losh, which is kneading. Now here we have the picture of someone who is making a dough. So we have the fine powder, which is called flour, and we are adding a liquid to it, which is a binder. And combining the two, we get a mass we get something that is a dough, so it became now a solid. The flour and water became now a new entity, which is called a dough. So this was in the Mishkan, when they made the herbs, they made it into a powder, they sifted it, and now it was clean. And then they added a liquid to it. They made it into cakes, to bars. Whenever they're going to be using it, they did not leave it as a powder, they use it as bars. So they added liquid and the powder of the dye. And now when they were ready to use it for the next step, they had now the material ready. So as baking bread, it would be taking the fine particles, mixing it together with a binder, and now it becomes a solid. It becomes now a new entity, becomes a dough. So this would include on page 154, this would include, even if it's not food, but dirt and water, sesame seeds and flax seeds with water. And the same would also be making plaster, using the powder, adding liquid, making plaster, using the sand and water, making cement. All of these would be included in this malacha. So this is a Torah prohibition called Balila Ava, a thick mixture, a heavy mixture, something that you could actually pick up. And let's get some of the terms. So here this malacha is Losh, Lisha, and it is kneading. And then we have different stages. There is a Torah prohibition, a rabbinic prohibition, and something that is permissible. Okay, so this would be what? Meraked.
Thank you. Thank you.
Meraked. So let me get it. So this would be number one. This is a Torah prohibition. Taking a binder with a fine powder, mixing it together, becomes one entity. And even if it's not a powder, something becomes one mass, one heavy, a thick a mixture. And that would also include using a binder. It could be oil. Let's say we have an egg salad. and the eggs are made very, very fine. Is that permissible to make the eggs very fine on Shabbos?
No.
I think you said yes. It's already
Yes,
like-
no?
That's the question? Okay, yes.
Can you take an egg and break it down to fine, fine, fine little pieces? Just take the egg. Now, we said that that would go into the category of grinding. And grinding applies only to things that come from the ground. An egg does not go into that category. An egg, the same thing as could you take cheese and break it down to very fine pieces? Yes.
Yes.
Same thing is with fish. Same thing is with meat. You could break it down to fine pieces. Now, we took the egg and we broke it down to fine pieces. Could we add oil to it? What will the oil do? It's a binder. It's going to combine all the pieces into one.
Yes.
That is a thick mixture. So even though breaking down the eggs is permissible, you could eat them as they are. But adding oil to it, that's a binder. Now you made a thick mixture.
So you can't do.
You cannot do that. You cannot add oil to. You could break down the eggs and eat them as is, but you cannot add the oil to it.
The same with mayo, right?
The same thing is now with mayonnaise. Mayonnaise is a binder. You take the mayonnaise with the eggs, and now you've combined them together, and they become one entity.
Is it because it makes it thicker?
It makes it into one lump, makes it into one mass. Now you can pick it up because it's now all combined with the mayonnaise. The same thing would be also if you have potatoes that can we cut up the potatoes fine on Shabbos?
No.
No, but, we said a but. If they are cooked, we were able to break them down with the handle of our fork knife. We're going to break them down. Could you add mayonnaise to it? Because that's a binder. However, how would it be permissible to make the egg salad with mayonnaise or oil, make the potato salad with the mayonnaise? How would it be permissible?
If in the first place, it is like, it was separated into pieces, so you, I don't know what the mayo first.
Let's see what we could
Before
do.
showers.
Now, again, let's identify what the malacha is. The malacha is that once you combine it with the binder, it all becomes one mass, it all becomes one entity, that you cannot identify the pieces that are there because they're so small, it all becomes like one lump. However, if you could identify the pieces, it did not make it into a dough-like substance. A dough-like substance is you can't see where the water is, you can't see where the flour is, it all became flour and water now became a dough. It's a new entity. So now if we have the eggs, if you add it with the mayonnaise, and you mix the mayonnaise together with the eggs, you can't see mayonnaise, you can't see eggs, you just see one egg salad. However, if you make the pieces of eggs bigger, then you could see the eggs. You can see it's mayonnaise and eggs. The eggs are now not small, they're bigger pieces. You could identify it. Same thing is also with the potato salad. You could smear the potatoes with mayonnaise. Even though you made it into a potato salad, but you could identify the potatoes as they are their own identity. So if they lose their identity because it became so mashed, and you put the mayonnaise in, now you cannot see potatoes or mayonnaise, it all becomes a potato salad. But as long as you are able to identify the potatoes, you are able to identify the eggs, then it's not a dough-like substance. It is eggs with mayonnaise, potatoes with mayonnaise. So
How
the
big
same.
do the eggs?
Because
you
then you could identify it.
But you can all, I mean, if.
No, if it's an egg salad, you can't see it. You can't tell the difference between the mayonnaise and the egg salad because it's so combined. Over here, you can see that it's an egg, so it has to be bigger pieces that you're gonna be able to identify what it is.
So you can add mayonnaise to mashed potatoes, but you can make potato salad.
Yes,
Okay.
But you can't, because in order to see the potato pieces, you need to cut them up when they're hard, so it doesn't make sense.
Yeah,
Right,
potato
right.
salad.
So you can't really make
It is,
salad because you
the
can't
potato salad is gonna be,
cut
you're gonna cut up the
it. You
potatoes.
can't cut the potato into small pieces, only if it's mashed.
You have to cut them in pieces.
No,
but
that
you
each-
know
that each
No, because
piece,
it comes from the ground.
huh? You know, but you have to cut into bigger pieces. So first of all,
But
you're
then
gonna,
you're still cutting them into pieces.
no, you could cut them into bigger pieces, you're allowed to
You
do
can't
that.
grind them.
But you can't- can't- You cannot make them into,
Oh,
small pieces,
like a piece of this.
but it has to be bigger.
This is not small.
The bigger pieces, I'm just saying, the bigger pieces that are not considered, again, we gave the identity that you can't make a salad that's going to be an Israeli salad, where the pieces are very small, we can do that small. So the same thing is going to be with your potato salad, you're gonna make the pieces bigger than that size. So this is, does anyone eat, another example would be you have potato salad, you have egg salad. The same would also be, does anyone have liver?
Yes.
Okay, so liver, you can have it in two ways. Either you have it chopped up, chopped liver, or you have liver that was ground, made into, how do we identify it? Ground liver. So same thing, adding oil to that would be to the ground liver, you could not use it, but if you chop the pieces of liver to pieces, that would be permissible. Now, we have another category.
The one that,
Oh. Here, now you can see.
So this is a Torah prohibition, Melila Ava, one that is thick, heavy, mass, that's a Torah prohibition. Then we have the rabbinic prohibition, and that is doing the same thing, but you're making something that is pourable from one vessel to the other, even though it has body to it. Could you give me an example of something that is Milovaka? Something that is, again, we took the powder and a liquid, we mixed it together, but it's not thick that we could actually have body to it, that you could actually pick it up. It's something that is a mixture together and it is loose, that you could pour from one vessel to the other. What would be an example of that?
Glaze.
Coffee. Okay.
Okay.
Now, coffee, let me use an example of making chocolate.
Making chocolate?
Making the chocolate, a chocolate drink. You want to have chocolate milk. So how do you make it? If you take chocolate powder and you add liquid to it, what's going to be the result? When you initially pour, you have the chocolate, you pour liquid. What are you going to be getting?
Chocolate milk.
No, you won't. What's it going to look like?
Brown.
You're going to get lumps. Everything is going to float up to the top.
Yes.
So in the weekdays, what do you do? That's not the way you want to drink your chocolate. So what do you do?
Stay with the form.
You take the powder, add a little liquid to it, and you mix it together.
Yeah.
And when it becomes now combined, then you're going to add the liquid, the hot water, milk, whatever it's going to be, and it's not going to float around, it's going to be a perfect drink. Now, on Shabbos, can you drink chocolates? Can you have your chocolate drink?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Now it matters how you make it. Now, when you initially, in the weekdays, when you make when you have the chocolate and you add the liquid to it, what do you get initially? You get a paste. Can you make a paste on Shabbos? You're taking fine particles of chocolate, adding a liquid to it, and now you've made a paste that is forbidden on Shabbos.
Right.
So you have to have the lumpy one. So you get the lumpy one, you keep stirring it until it dissolves. Now,
What about coffee?
now, do you do the same with coffee?
No. 'cause
No, coffee is.
It's very soluble, is that why?
That's correct. Yeah, so the coffee is, you don't get any lumps, you don't make any paste. So having coffee on Shabbos would be permissible or not?
It is permissible.
Why?
Because then we can read from the.
Why is it permissible? Let's hear it.
Because,
It's not making lumps and.
yeah, because it's not making a paste.
You're not making a paste, you're not making any,
It's dissolving.
you're not making any, there's nothing to do with lush because it dissolves.
Yes.
Initially it dissolves and that is permissible. You are permitted to dissolve the powder. There's no problem with it. It's only when it's going to be stages going from ava, that's thick, or that's Torah provision, or raka, that is rabbinic. So we're going to now have to cover.
So you can have Swiss powder, chocolate powder?
Yeah, I'm confused.
You could, as long as you don't make it into a paste.
Oh,
So if you add hot water.
Yes.
That's fine.
Oh.
Yes, it'd be klishlishi,
Yeah.
and you keep stirring it until you just can't make the paste stage.
Right.
That's the problem. Okay, so, okay, you all, okay, is your English, you understand English now?
yeah, let me know.
No,